It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott's here. Richard Campbell's in Copenhagen, but he's going to join us anyway. It's Week D. Do you know where your preview updates are? Microsoft took Paul's advice. What? The new Lenovo ThinkPads are here with a review from Paul. iPhone 16, Pixel 9. Yes, I know it's Windows Weekly. We're going to stick it in anyway. And a great tip of the week, plus a whiskey from Denmark. All that coming up next on Windows Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell, episode 896, recorded Wednesday, August 28th, 2024. A very buxom seal. Hey, winners and dozers, it's time for Windows Weekly, the show where we cover the latest news and snooze from Microsoft. Joining me right now, Paul Thurrott from Thurrott.com.
I'll handle the snooze. Thank you very much.
How snoozy are you?
And in beautiful, wonderful, wonderful Copenhagen, it's Richard Campbell, Run his radio. Wait a minute, I have to switch you guys. You're in the wrong slot. I got to put. There we go. Holy cow. Okay.
How come no one told me my butt was so big? Wrong movie. Anyway.
Hello. Good to see you both.
Yeah.
Anything going on? Well, first of all, what are you doing in Copenhagen, Mr. Campbell?
Copenhagen Developers Festival. And just finished up my first talk on understanding nuclear power. So I did a solid hour of working through how light water reactors evolved and current problems and attempts to make them less costly and safer and all the fun stuff.
I didn't know you had expertise in that realm.
I just know how to tell a good story.
So you could basically give a speech on anything given enough time.
Yep. And it was a lot of research.
I love how confident he is. He's like, yep.
Nope, done it.
You could talk about the mating habits of the Falkland penguins. You could
ask me that question. You're going to get a pregnant pause for the ages.
I'm going to get I can do the Northern River Otter off the top of my head because I read that book.
Wow. That's cool. Well, you're a public speaker.
Yeah.
And the topics are fungible.
On .NET Rocks, we did a whole series of geek outs, and I did a bunch of shows on nuclear power.
I think it's great. So we need somebody who can talk about it in plain English.
So we basically compiled that into a talk. So
nice.
A little light water, a little boiling water, a little sodium, some thorium molten salt reactors.
This reminds me, this has probably come up before, but you're in high school, and they put the thing up on the wall. It says, we want people to be in a school play. And some people like, ooh. And then some others like, ooh. And I think we're on the opposite ends of that when it comes to the desire to speak publicly or whatever.
Yeah. I've been doing conference speaking now at 30 years. And it's fun to push against other things. And these geek outs have been really rewarding. The feedback I got from people coming up to me afterwards was like, I've always tried to figure out what the heck was going on. You explained it. Like, I get it now.
See, the part where it's over and people are walking up is also my favorite part, but that's because that's when it's over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, how's Windows for you?
Let's
I told you to be a pregnant pause when you asked me the hard questions.
Let's talk about Windows.
Do you really want to know
what's going on?
How's Windows doing for you? I can just go directly to Danish whiskey if you want.
Maybe we should. That's coming at the end, kids. Don't get too. I
was in a bar that had writer's tears. I thought of you.
And not the tequila finish, I hope.
Actually, I did have tequila instead of that, interestingly. So, so last week was Week D. This is the week we get the preview updates, assuming Microsoft ships them out on time. And this week they did. You may recall that actually it was this month, technically, Patch Tuesday, the 3 supported versions of Windows 11 aligned as predicted. Mm-hmm. And now that we have the patch or the Week D updates, they have disaligned. What am I looking at? They've become more chaotic or slightly more different. Yeah. So these are sort of preview updates for the Patch Tuesday update we're going to get in September, right? Mm-hmm. So they went out yesterday as we record this. 23 and 22H2 both got the same knowledge base, the same cumulative update, couple of minor features. And then 24H2 got something separate, which was even more minor, actually.
And they were all supposed to be the same, except why are they why should they be the same when they literally get different numbers?
Yeah. I can't answer any questions like that. Who knows? I mean, it's just a mystery. I don't know. This is the world we live in, right? So some of this stuff will sound familiar because they were testing it in the Insider Preview program. So, for example, if you have an Android phone connected to Phone Link, it will appear as the first choice in the share pane that nobody uses. So you can share to your phone, I guess. I'm not sure why you would want to do that, but that's fine. Minor improvements to some of the accessibility features. And then the one common feature between the week D updates for both 22, 23, and 24H2, which is just some foundational work on the widgets interface, because they're going to allow third-party extensions to the feed and so forth. So they're doing that work now ahead of what I assume is going to be September, October, the mainstream release of 24H2, which I think is when they want that stuff to go live. And this is apparently in response to the EU and the DMA, although they're making this change worldwide. And maybe it is. I don't know. For some reason, I sort of had this separate in my brain that this wasn't what that was, that they always intended for widgets to be extensible. But anyway, that's happening. That's still in the future, but it is happening. So nothing dramatic. And of course, if history is any guide, and it is not,
It certainly hasn't.
I mean, it is just not. It just isn't. I mean, we should be getting pretty close to what 24H2 is, that's broader release that will go out to the x64 PCs as well.
22H2.
No, I mean 24H2, like the next one. Like, in other words, we're getting closer to what that should be. I don't know that we're going to see much in the way of new features over the next 30 days, right? Like we're probably kind of where it's going to be.
The end of August. Like, they pretty much got to get it together now.
Yep. So I think that's, maybe that explains the slowdown. I don't know. They'll probably catch up as soon as they release it. They'll release a new preview update, and we'll start getting all this other stuff.
22H2 up to bed.
Yep. Yeah, so that's
I'm interested, I still haven't given up a couple of my Win10 machines, so I'm waiting to see what's going to happen to those.
Yep.
My old domain joint to it too.
Richard, if you had joined the show, I don't know, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and you would ask me questions like the questions you've asked me today, with great certainty, I could have answered those questions. And today I'm just kind of juggling here in the apocalypse. I have no idea what's going on. Like, you don't even, it's just not even worth pretending I understand what's happening, because
you haven't even done a look. It's Elvis or anything, like not a distraction.
Is that Bob Hope? What's happening? It's something card trick. I don't know. I
don't know. Wow.
So, no, they don't say anything. Things happen. We have no way of knowing. But, again, based on history, October is probably the rough time frame for 24H2. We know that October is the time frame for the end of support for 22H2. It's Microsoft, right? So a lot of those guys that are still on 22H2 for whatever reason will probably be forced updated to 23H2 because they do things stupidly. So,
but nothing will change because they're identical.
Yeah, they are and they aren't. Right now they're not. They've kind of shifted. Although September's a new month. I mean, we'll see. These are just preview updates. Maybe we shouldn't read too much into it. We're 20. Yes, 20. Kev says 22H2 ish. I would say 22H2 adjacent.
There you go. Yeah.
We're all 22. We're 20 something H2 something. I don't know.
Everybody's got an H2.
Yeah.
That's the important part.
Yep. So I didn't put this in the notes, but next week is IFA in Berlin. We're going to see a formal launch of. Yeah, I am going. Excuse me. I'm choked up just thinking about going to Europe. Lunar Lake launching for Intel. The next second gen Intel Core Ultra chipsets. Lots of PCs based on that will be coming out. And art will be announced next week. So next week should be a pretty big one. Mm-hmm. This has been a curiously big year for PCs. We've kind of talked about that. It's been a busy summer for reviewing laptops. I'm actually going to touch on a little bit of that just because.
If Snapdragon hadn't showed up, would that still be true?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I just think it's not. Well, and you can say that's first order and second order too. It's first order just reviewing Snapdragon stuff, and second order is everybody else that's not in that space going, oh man.
I think you can, Microsoft can and has pushed toward chip makers and also PC makers these notions of this is what we need, this is what we need, this is what they need, and then just kind of ignore. And then I think what caught Intel flat-footed here essentially was, wait a minute, Qualcomm actually figured it out? Damn it. we were kind of counting on them never figuring it out, because that strategy has worked great for about 7 years or whatever.
Well, there's also an argument of have they actually figured it out? Are the drivers good enough? So you've made a machine, but you did that before. Let's go take a look at some of those WinRT tablets and say how that went.
Yeah, I mean, so some of the questions coming up with Qualcomm are anything at IFA, and then they also have the big annual event in October, their Snapdragon Summit, and I think it's reasonable. Well, there's one thing we do know is they will be announcing new chips for their phones that are based on the Snapdragon X architecture. That's the big play for them. So that's happening, but my question is whether we're going to see what would call it a Snapdragon Elite X V2, whatever, for CES release timeframe. I don't know.
It's pretty short. I mean, you would think no sooner than spring next year, but I would expect fall next year.
Yeah, so you're probably closer to the mark than I am, because I tend to think in these CES IFA timeframes. But the reality is they announced Snapdragon X at last October, and those machines didn't ship until June. So, yeah, I mean, that could be.
Yeah, well, they could announce it again at IFA. You're just not going to be able to get them for another 9 months.
Yeah, I feel like Snapdragon or Qualcomm at some point should align with the rest of the PC market because, obvious reasons. But so far,
the other thing is, they haven't talked about production problems. We know we've had weird chip availabilities.
Yep.
I wouldn't go around announcing a next generation chip when you still get a bunch of back orders for the first generation chips.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk to those guys at Osborne about that. They were
how can we find those guys? Back then, a phone number was probably 5 digits long, and you could talk to someone to make the call.
You just talk to Lily. You just bang the handset a couple times, Lily, put me through.
Exactly. Yeah. So I don't know. At the end of every year is always interesting for Windows because of the H2 stuff. This is the big feature update timeframe. But back to school, holidays, IFA, all this. It's all kind of colliding. So we'll see. Next month or 2 months, whatever, it's going to be kind of interesting. I think
it hasn't already. It's been pretty cool since April.
Well, it depends on who you ask. I mean, for me, it's been hotter than anything since June 18th, and then I just got caught. I finally reviewed the fourth of the 4 Snapdragon X laptops I have, which means I have to go back to the crap that Intel makes.
Intel again. Oh no.
Actually, like we talked about last week, I think HP did some interesting work on that EliteBook 1040. There's some interesting stuff going on. There's some, AMD nonsense with their Zen 5 not performing to what anyone expected, including apparently AMD. So that's been kind of interesting. And part of it, I think, is that AMD was counting on 24H2, and apparently there's some architectural work there that's a little different from 23H2 that actually makes their newer Zen 5 chips run better. And so they shipped them, of course, before then, and everyone's like, how come this isn't even close to what you said it was? What's going on there? So anyway, I think that's going to iron out. I think everything will be fine. Lunar Lake still kind of
waiting on a Windows update. That's a tough way to live.
Well, that's my entire adult existence. So, yeah, I agree.
It started so well.
Okay, so let's see. Since we talked last week, there's only been, to my memory, one Insider Program build, although that could be changing as we speak. Microsoft, for some reason, keeps screwing around with the lock screen. So when you think about all the things you might want to fix in Windows, and I'm going to actually touch on one of those in a minute, they don't do any of that stuff. But what they do is fix problems no one has, and I don't know. So, like all those times
screen, I keep looking at my machine and it unlocks.
Yeah, exactly. You're playing media through your PC like it's 1997, and for some reason you want to control it from the lock screen. So there's a media playback control there already, but they're updating it, and now it's going to sit below those 4 tiles you may or may not be seeing yet. They'll get there eventually.
You configured Windows Hello, and so every time you go to reach for that pause button, it disappears and it welcomes you.
Yep. Yeah, and if you have presence sensing, which increasingly a lot of newer PCs do, that thing sees you coming from across the room. Yeah. You're like, I'm just going to go pause the. Oh no, I'm not.
I'm not.
It's a sign you in like, it's like you got to walk up to it, and sneak up to it or something.
No, this feels like an intern who drew a short straw.
Yeah. So every time I make fun of or complain about something like that, I always hear from the one guy who's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I use this feature every single day. So I guess, to each their own, but I don't know, whatever. So this is the world we live in.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if I feel like we might have talked about this a little bit last week, but I hadn't written about it. So this month's Patch Tuesday update. So 2 weeks ago, apparently borked a small number of I think we did talk about this. These Linux bootloaders on machines that were dual booting.
This was also patching a 0 day, as I recall. So they did.
Yeah. So this is a typical example of what happens with Microsoft. This happened with them with CrowdStrike. Right. I was like, that sounded right. Terrible name, by the way. And look, the jury's out a little bit here on whether or not Microsoft deserves some blame. I think they made a pretty good case that it was pretty much right at CrowdStrike's feet. And of course, CrowdStrike took credit for that. But whatever, these things happen and people are like, Microsoft, there we go again, So unfortunately with this, the bootloader thing, open source community is a little tough. They look at this and think, here we go. Yep, Microsoft Linux is a cancer. They're doing it again.
1998 again.
But it turns out that they actually did all the work to make sure this was going to work. The thing that Microsoft, the mistake they made was they only tested it against supported Linux bootloaders, not the out-of-date bootloaders that some people for some reason still have on their computers. So since this has happened...
An untexted Linux box? What are you talking about?
I know. So Microsoft has posted instructions on how to fix this if for some reason you're so technical that you're dual booting an older version of Linux and Windows and this hurt you. But I'm guessing most of those people probably figured it out. But they try to make that right. And look, whatever anyone thinks of Microsoft, I certainly have my own mixed feelings. They're not going after Linux. I'm sorry. They're just
least of all an old bootloader set.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Like, this is how we get them. We're going to undermine them. We're going to start in the past.
Yeah.
Anyhow, well, TPM, that was a problem. Secure boot, that was a problem. There's all these things, Microsoft clearly. This is not about securing the PC. It's about hurting Linux,
There you go. That's
so, okay. I finally wrote this up a couple of weeks ago, sometime this month. I had written something about a particular set of keyboards that were both happened to be from HP, where keyboard shortcuts that I work on that have worked since the beginning of Windows stopped working correctly, right? I actually have this other problem I have routinely. In fact, it surfaces every week when I do the show notes for this show, right? Because the way I do that is I have a little template that I paste in that's just empty with, some headers and things. And then I go to my website and I go through the previous week and I find the stories and I copy and paste them in, right?
Yep.
And I don't always copy paste the headline stuff. I usually write that directly in Notion, but then I grab the URL and paste it in so you guys can click on it and see the story, right? And it doesn't matter which browser I use, but it's, you right click on a heading or whatever, something that has a URL, copy a link address, go over to Notion, paste. Nope. I would say, no, it's not fair to say. I was going to say 50%. I would say maybe 20, 25% of the time it pastes nothing. It pastes something else. It pastes the last thing that was in the clipboard. The thing that I went to do to go copy to the clipboard didn't work.
Right.
And this is I don't want to beat this one to death, but my rationale or the evidence I've seen suggests that if you think about this is typically what happened with a touchpad, not with a mouse, right? You right click by two, or maybe you're using the zone, right? Those are a little different on all touchpads. That can be the source of hilarity. And the context menu comes up and then you click copy, right? It's pretty straightforward stuff. But you didn't click it right. And by that, I mean, you might have clicked over in the right click zone, or you might have somehow, you fumble fingered it. I do this all the time. So what happens when you do that is the clipboard doesn't change. So if there was a previous URL in there, another item that maybe is not compatible to paste as text as I'm doing here, you get the wrong thing or nothing, right? That's what happens. This happens to me all the time. And look, not a software designer, not an expert software developer, anything like that. However, based on how often this happens, and just based on my knowledge of software, the thing is, when you right-click something and a menu comes up, there's only two things you're going to do there. You're going to click on something and you mean to click on it, or you're going to cancel it, right? You can hit escape, you can click outside of it, it goes away. Mm-hmm. But when you actually click, and you can hear the thing click, you hear the clunk on the trackpad, you feel it go down and come back up.
Right.
The context menu disappears.
Right.
It should do what you want, right?
Yeah.
And I bet
you
for
all
Microsoft
the cues that it's done it.
Yeah, my guess, and this is based on many years of experiencing this, is that it registers as a right click. There is no way to right click a right click menu. There's nothing. It doesn't respond to that event, and it just ignores it. I think that's what happens. And so what I'm saying is, when you right click something, like and your menu comes up, and then you right click at one of those items, you clicked it. Just take it as a click.
It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's what people intended.
This is what I'm outraged about this week, Richard. Okay.
Be outraged.
No, it's just, sometimes it's a little slow and I have to invent something. So that was, I've been meaning to write that one probably for 10 years, honestly, but I had just done the one about the keyboard and I was like, this is actually far more common. And what's beautiful about our world too is I write about this, and I don't know if it's split 50-50 or not, but let's say it is. A lot of people are going to say, oh my God, yeah, that happens to me all the time. I asked my wife about this. She's not, technical, but she's smart. She's like, I do this every day. I'm like, I know you do. Everyone does. No, but not everyone does. That's the thing. You get people like, that never happens to me. Yeah. I'm like, okay.
I never do that.
Well, that must be nice. So you're using a mouse maybe, or, where that wouldn't happen, I guess. Yeah. Maybe you're using a track point. I know one guy who said he didn't see it, was using the little nubbin thing. Okay, fair enough. It doesn't happen every single time. That's what Windows does to you, right? Mm-hmm. It only happens sometimes, just enough to make you think, maybe it's you. But it's not you.
A little bit of gaslighting from your computer.
Exactly. What's a little gaslighting between friends? So anyway.
That's Windows Gaslighting Foundation.
That's right. Why is Windows not returning my texts?
The lights are a little bit dimmer today. A little bit.
Leo, are you still with us? He's gone. I think he's still trying to troubleshoot.
Yeah, they're fighting something.
All right, we will move on. No, he's back.
There he is.
Oh, boy.
Can't hear you.
I don't know what's going on. Can you not hear me?
I hear you now.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, let me pause then.
There we go. Sorry.
I don't know. Okay, never mind. Forget I said anything. The show today, brought to you, we're happy to say, by BigID. And I want to tell you a little bit about what BigID does. They're Gen AI solutions. Wait, I know you're saying, oh, but wait, gentlemen, I don't want to use it. Listen, their Gen AI solutions help you navigate the labyrinthine world of AI from the security perspective, from your CISO perspective. With BigID, you can leverage solutions that take a defense in-depth approach to automating manual processes, to improving accuracy and actionability, and applying AI and ML to cut through the noise, improve risk management, and enable a robust data security strategy. You can find the data wherever it is, at scale, on-prem, in the cloud, structured, unstructured, semi-structured data, hundreds of data sources. You can see inside zip files. So that's the step one, is to know, what is my data? Where is my data? Where is it living? And then now, because you know where everything is, you can train AI on only data that's safe to use. And you get an audit trail, so you know exactly what's being used to train the AI, what's not. You can minimize your attack surface through policy-driven retention management by removing redundant and outdated data. You don't want to train the AI with that anyway. You can audit and inspect the data that's being shared with AI. You can be alerted to breaches. I mean, this is a fantastic solution. It's why the U.S. Army, I mean, you can imagine their data is everywhere, right? They use BigID. Telenor, another big company, big telecom, uses BigID to show their customers they're handling data in a secure way. By the way, that's a whole another thing, right? Compliance and responsibility and showing your customers, no, we do everything right. Here's the quote from Telenor. We want, and I won't do this in a Norwegian accent, but imagine, we want to focus on the business and have a partner like BigID to focus on the tech. We wanted a partner that understood what we're doing, and can help us. Companies who use BigID, they go on to say, are showing that they're taking data seriously. And that's what you want to show your customers, right? Don't miss their big CISO Digital Summit. It's coming up October 17th, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. You can attend from anywhere. It's centered around the next era of data security. It's a virtual summit. Deep dives into the latest data security practices and technologies, everything from DSPM to AI to DLP and beyond, with expert-level panel discussions, interactive discussions with your peers. This is so cool. You got to go. A great lineup of speakers, including a keynote from the head of cybersecurity and compliance at Denny's, another big distributed organization that takes advantage of BigID. You can get 2 CPE credits. Oh, nice. And a raffle entry just for attending. Be sure to tune in and strengthen your organization's security posture in an ever-evolving digital landscape. Start protecting your sensitive data wherever that data lives. BigID.com/Windows. You can go there and get a free demo to see how BigID can help your organization reduce data risk and accelerate the adoption of generative AI. Again, that's BigID. BigID.com/Windows. There are lots of white papers there. They have a new report that provides valuable insights and key trends on AI adoption, challenges, and the overall impact of Gen AI across organizations. Find out more at BigID.com/Windows. We thank BigID for supporting Windows Weekly. We thank you for supporting Windows Weekly by going to that site, BigID.com/Windows. Now back to the show.
So, you guys probably don't remember this, but there was a little security incident earlier this year.
No.
Not the Microsoft hack thing that they're not really talking about still. No, I'm referring to the CrowdStrike thing that brought Delta to its knees and apparently half the rest of the planet.
Yeah.
And
yeah. But,
Yeah. And, there was a lot of back and forth, right? Microsoft lashed out at the EU at the time, blaming this, 15-year-old antitrust thing they had to do to get Vista out the door. I made the argument that going back and actually looking at what they did, that was Microsoft's idea, not the EU's. And seriously, what are you doing, Microsoft? Anyway, for all the back and forth on that and the blame and the finger pointing and whatnot, I kind of said, look, and not a unique thought, but here's an idea. Why don't we just fix the problem? Let's just fix the problem. And the way we fix the problem is not to engage with regulators who are idiots. It is to work with the industry and actually just fix the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying they took my advice, although they sort of did. I mean, I'm sure they didn't listen to me in the slightest, but they're going to have a security summit this when, Paul? When is this?
September 10th?
This September. With CrowdStrike and others in the security industry to try to solve this problem. I kind of imagine this like that scene in Lethal Weapon where there's like a tarp on the ground and the guy from CrowdStrike walks in and he's like, what's up with the tarp? And they're like, we're just doing a little remodeling. And, somebody shoots the fish tank. You know what I'm talking about. But
I'm worried about the guys from CrowdStrike because I could see a lot of people being rather angry with them.
Yeah.
They did have a path to do this that wouldn't cause this problem. They just didn't take it.
Right. And I think that maybe this is just about kind of shaking hands and agreeing we're going to start doing that stuff. And I did see someone had made was this the raise somewhere? I don't remember where this came from, but fairly recently, probably in response to the story, someone had said, Microsoft is the one who continued allowing kernel access to Windows. I mean, technically on that level, it is kind of their fault and like, okay, fair enough. But
but they were also the ones that got in big trouble when they didn't allow people into their kernel. So.
Yeah. And as we explained on the show, and then we had a further conversation about it, Microsoft did what they did to get, Windows Vista, which was Longhorn, was 3, 4, or 5, whatever years behind schedule. They needed to get that thing out the door before the end of the year. And so, they made some concessions there. They were the ones that came up with the idea, and the thing we had talked about was, that's cute, but that was 2006. I mean, it's been almost 20 years since then. I mean, you couldn't have turned this off since then. If this is such a huge security problem, whatever. But, I don't know if you heard this, but Microsoft is all about security now again.
Mm-hmm.
And this time they're serious. And I guess we'll see. So I don't know.
I'm certainly hearing from certain corners about it being harder to get certain things done because the FSI restrictions are being enforced. And they're still learning how to make it work.
I haven't said this about Microsoft since possibly the 1990s, but I think they need to move a little slower. It's been this past 2 years almost.
Yeah, no,
it's been kind of crazy.
It's particular crazy.
It's been nuts. So so they're gonna. This is the right thing, and this is going to be one of those we're all going to have to make hard decisions kind of things. Yeah. I suspect that their partners, CrowdStrike and whoever else is on that list, I think their one concern is going to be, okay, but you're going to do the same thing, right? You're going to restrict yourself in the same way Microsoft as we do, thus leveling the playing field. In other words, you'll architect Windows in such a way, if you have to change it, that we will all be using the same level of access to whatever APIs.
I mean, the idea that if you're going to make us use an API, tell us you're using that API too.
That's right.
Gives us then you're dog fooding this API. It's not just for.
And I have to think that's what they're going to do, right? I mean,
generally my experience with the kernel team is they don't want to work with you anyway. So all the more that you have to go up to the API level.
Sure. I hope they wear wizard hats and float around about 6 inches off the ground.
Well, it was once described to me as most of those folks have been in that company for 30 plus years. Yeah. And they don't want to change. And it's like, unless they have 8 wives and a cocaine habit, they don't need the money. So how do you persuade them to do anything?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
They work on what they want to work on and we deal with it.
Right. I think everyone wants to do the right thing. So in this case, I should say. I've said this before. It's like nobody goes to work to be terrible. Harm. Yeah.
Right. They've just worried about different things.
No, it's just a happy coincidence, Richard. It's a win-win. Right. I call this the McDonald's rule. This is, they didn't start McDonald's to make America fat. Mm-hmm. They were solving a problem, and they were, and they did a great job, and they did too good of a job apparently. So
some consequences.
Yeah. Yes. So that's what the kernel is. It's McDonald's. Don't look for the logic, please.
Yeah. No. There's a metaphor here about a Happy Meal somewhere. I just can't.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. Yes. Copilot is that plastic toy you get with the Happy Meal.
There you go. Look.
You're like, it looks like something, but it's not. I'm going to just rest on that for a second. Okay. So every quarter I report on Microsoft's financials and also on other companies, but I focus on Microsoft. And, the one thing I've seen that I find very troubling, and it's gotten worse and worse and worse, not just Microsoft, but again, I focus on Microsoft, is they are not providing the details we need. And by we, I don't mean people who are nosy. I mean people who are shareholders and want to be shareholders and need that information to know whether this company is worth investing in. Mm-hmm. There have been no changes with the SEC and reporting rules or anything like that. This is not in response to anything. I think it's a collective testing of the pushback, and there's been none. So Apple used to report exactly the number of iPhones and whatever else they sold every quarter, and now they don't, and so now we have nothing to go off of. And so for the entire time that Azure has been a thing, there's never been a single quarter where Microsoft said we made dollar amount something with it. We have no idea.
Azure utilization.
Yeah. And so the net result is that
something else.
Yeah, this is about a lack of transparency, right? And so
And to be clear, not specific to Microsoft. Every tech company.
Oh no, not at all. But I focus on Microsoft, right? Yeah. That's my only thing. Mm-hmm. So Microsoft has 3 top level business units. We talk about this. Intelligent Cloud is the biggest one. This is Azure, right? Productivity and business processes, which is essentially Microsoft 365,
right?
And then more personal computing, which is like the garbage collector thing in the bottom of the sink that gets everything else, and that's Windows, Xbox, Surface. And I want to say like Bing and search advertising, stuff like that. It's Windows, right? Or actually now it's Windows and Xbox because Xbox is suddenly huge thanks to Activision. Anyway, it used to be that there was a long period of time where these 3 businesses were roughly the same size, which I took to be a little bit of accounting chicanery at the time. But as Azure has grown and as Microsoft 365 has grown to be more and more important to the company, these are both essentially cloud-based, subscription-based services, right, for businesses. Those 2 parts have grown more and have gotten bigger. And Intelligent Cloud, like I said, is the big one. Mm-hmm. So you can do all kinds of things when you only have 3 business units. You can move stuff around however you want.
Yeah.
They pushed HoloLens into the devices part of more personal computing at one point, right? And it just kind of sits there dead. Nobody has any idea how it impacts anything. There's no way to know. There's no quarter-over-quarter comparable. Just no idea. But the previous, it's still the current reporting structure, but the way they report revenues is kind of interesting because as Microsoft has turned into this different kind of company, it's not really clear like where revenue comes from, right? So something like Microsoft 365 for businesses, not the consumer version, but the commercial version, often includes things that related to Windows, like Windows licensing, and you get the enterprise version of Windows 11 or 10 or whatever. And okay, so are those revenues in more personal computing, or are they in the Microsoft 365 numbers that are part of productivity business processes? There's no, you have to look for little hints. And so we were always, every quarter, you're looking like, okay, what are the little details? What's going on here? So really surprising to me, Microsoft in the past week made an announcement. They filed a legal document with the SEC to explain that for its now current fiscal year, they will be reporting things differently. They're not changing the top 3 level business units, but they are shuffling around what goes where.
Right.
Not all of it. I mean, some is changing more than others, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't, the details aren't super important, but the situation I just described is being resolved. So for example, more personal computing, like I said, has to date included all of the revenues generated by Windows. But now the parts of Windows Commercial that are part of Microsoft 365 are going over to productivity and business processes. Right. There's other changes, but just as an obvious one, because that's the
revenue mapping thing. That's like they're dumping some cash items over there and picking up some other ones over here.
Yeah. Now, Microsoft promoted this in 2 ways. A, they claimed that it was more transparent, which is nonsense, and because there's no way to compare anything to anything. And B, they said this puts the reporting of revenues where those revenues actually occur. Which actually is true, right? Some percentage of the revenues we would have attributed to, or we think of as being for Windows, actually came because customers wanted a broader Microsoft 365 offering of some kind. I mean, it's a combination of offerings, really, right? But whatever. And where does all the AI stuff go, right? That's been a big question more recently. Like we have revenues from things like Copilot for Microsoft 365. Where does that go? Copilot Pro, which is the consumer version of that. Where does that go? And the fascinating part about this is those things are changing. And because they're changing, we know now where they were. They never said this before.
Interesting,
right? Yeah. So Copilot Pro, the consumer version of Copilot for Microsoft 365, the revenues from that product, which had to have been minuscule, right, were previously reported under Office Consumer Products and Cloud Services, which is part of productivity and business processes, part of Microsoft 365. That's moving into search and news advertising, which is part of more personal computing, where Windows is. And okay. I mean, okay, right? So Windows as a business, or I should say more personal computing as the business, is losing Windows commercial revenues, which I think is going to be huge. But they're gaining Copilot Pro revenues, which I think are tiny. Now, helping matters and masking this quarter to quarter, year over year is they have Activision Blizzard. So Activision Blizzard revenues are also in more personal computing. It's going to be hard to kind of see. But aside from the fact,
all the gaming stuff is in more personal computing.
That's right. And that's not changing, right? And so even though you could make some argument that subscription services and a little bit of cloud streaming, that doesn't amount to anything, there's something Azure in there, but it's just, it's all more personal computing.
Right.
So we learned a little bit about where revenues were, some of them. We learned a little bit about where they're going. And for the next 4 quarters, they're going to do year-over-year comparables, only percentages, right? Not raw numbers, but that will pretend that the business structure last year is what it is this year. So we're actually gonna get some.
But you also get to realize
insight.
Obviously, every one of these business units knows how much that money they make. They do quarterly.
Oh, they do, yeah.
All internal, and so literally, you're just watching a little bit of a deck shuffle here, where they for sure.
So, but
Like,
here's the thing.
You should be able to derive what their past numbers were if you knew those breakouts.
Yeah. I mean, for me, because I have to report on this, the big deal here is that because of these year-over-year pretend comparables,
Right.
we're going to actually get to see, I think, if I'm understanding this correctly, roughly how much Windows commercial products and services, if I'm getting that name right, contributed to Windows overall.
Right.
At least as a percentage, right?
Yeah.
Because we'll see what it was in each of the previous 4 quarters, I think, if I understand it. Or we'll see it from 1 quarter a year ago for 4 quarters in a row. However they do it, it doesn't really matter. But it's again, not what we want, not what I want, certainly, but it is more. It will have to do math and, they're not making it easy, but that to me is actually kind of fascinating. So we're going to get a little, it's a little, just a quick peek in there, and we're going to see some of that. So that's cool. But I have to say, this is just more of the same from a transparency perspective.
Right.
I mean, you can, we know, because we talk about this, that when Microsoft stock was skyrocketing, when Satya Nadella first took over, it was because largely that Azure growth quarter or year over year, every quarter was 70%, 70%. That's a crazy number. And, as we got through several of those, this can't last. I mean, at some point, this business matures. And sure enough, it did, 63, 58, 52. And Wall Street was okay with it for a little while. But once it got down to 40 something, they were like, whoa, what's going on? Is something wrong? No, AI, blah, 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 blah. They kind of changed the tune, right? So by moving revenues that arguably should have been reported in that business into that business, I mean, that's not a good example because Microsoft 365 is not going there. But by moving things around, they can smooth out, revenue, literal total revenues, revenue growth percentages per business, whatever it is. And I think this is just a way to kind of smooth out a little bit of a problem, which is we're spending $19 billion every quarter, and it's going to get worse on AI. And now they can be like, well, it's okay. See, all the businesses are doing great. So you can hide things that are negative more easily when you have lots of things that make lots of money.
And whatever you want to make positive is easy to make, right? If they do, so I think that's off a Copilot, they can promote that. But you're never going to be able to drive it yourself.
My guess is that's why they're doing it. I mentioned that there haven't been
Copilot
any
positioning strategies.
Yeah, actually, that's how I determined that. I actually asked Copilot while they were doing it. But they, but no, I mentioned that the reporting requirements from the SEC hadn't changed. It wasn't in response to anything like that. But it is possible that behind the scenes, the SEC has come to them and said, "Hey, you got a lot of CapEx going on here with AI, and we don't see this anywhere. So what's going on? Like, you actually have to. You're legally required to report on that." So this may have been, I'm going to say, inspired by a conversation with the SEC. Nobody knows about that, but whatever the reason, this is changing, and because they're changing it, they are legally obligated to do that year-over-year comparable thing that I described earlier. So that's not something they're doing because they're we're a fun, new, transparent company.
They're not being.
It's a legal requirement.
Maintaining.
So that is fascinating to me. So we're going to get not a lot more. We're going to get a little bit more information. So that's always good, because that's been the frustration, right? Yeah. For me, and for people like me, I guess. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our show today brought to you by Experts Exchange, and we do love these. You know what? I could go to Experts Exchange and figure this out. e-e.com. That's it. Wouldn't you love that though in your work, if you're in IT or a CISO or CIO, and you go, well, how does this, what's going on here? Experts Exchange is a network of trustworthy and talented tech professionals. You can go to them to get industry insights. You can get advice from people who are actually using the products in your stack. Instead of going to Reddit and getting some guy just guessing, or paying for expensive enterprise level tech support and getting some guy just guessing, as the tech community, for people tired of the AI sellout, you'll love this. Experts Exchange is ready to help carry the fight for the future of human intelligence. God bless them. I'll tell you how they're doing this in a couple of ways. First of all, you're getting real humans. No AI allowed. The moderators will take AI answers out. There's no AI here. You get real professionals in over 400 different fields. We're getting coding experts, Microsoft, Azure experts, AWS experts, DevOps, everything. Unlike other places, they're not snarky. They're nice. Duplicate questions are encouraged. They don't make fun of you. They don't make fun of your question. They genuinely are there to help. The contributors are tech junkies who love graciously answering all questions. You know why? Because there's a fundamental truth in the world. If you have learned something, if you have attained expertise in an area, the real fulfillment, the real joy of knowing something is passing your knowledge on to help someone in need. It doesn't hurt that you also get extended education credits and karma points too. I mean, they've really made it so there's a lot of incentive for you to answer questions to help other people in there as an expert. So as a user, you're going to love this. And as an expert, you're going to love this. One member said, quote, "I never had GPT stop and ask me a question, a follow-up before. This happens on Experts Exchange all the time." They are Experts Exchange is proudly committed to fostering a community where human collaboration is fundamental. It's at the root of the whole thing. There's actually a number of people I found out since we started doing these ads who listen, who are also experts in there, like Rodney Barnhart. He is a VMware vExpert, a regular Twit listener. Edward von Biljon, who is a very well-known ethical hacker and a Microsoft MVP. Imagine saying, "Hey, Edward, what's going on here?" And they go, "Oh," he says, "Well, I understand this because I'm right there with you in the tools, buried in it." Imagine asking somebody like Richard Campbell, "Hey, what's going on with Exchange?" You can at least share, some invective. Cisco design professionals in there, executive IT directors, and more. And this is the really great thing. Other platforms betray their contributors by selling the content, the stuff you put on there, to train AI models. At Experts Exchange, your privacy is not for sale. They stand against the betrayal of contributors worldwide. They have never and will never sell your data, your content, your likeness. They block and strictly prohibit AI companies from scraping content from their site to train their LLMs. Their moderators strictly forbid the direct use of LLM content in their threads. This is a place for humans. Experts and people who want to be experts and want answers deserve a place where they can confidently exchange knowledge without worrying about a corporation stealing it to increase shareholder value. And frankly, humanity deserves a safe haven from AI. That's Experts Exchange. I mean, I used them for years. I kind of lost track of them. I'm so glad I found them again. I had a great conversation a few weeks ago with the folks at Experts Exchange, and they said, "Look, we're going to do something crazy because we know people have kind of lost track of us or maybe have decided we're like the other guys. We're going to give you a chance to join Experts Exchange right now for 3 months free. You don't give them a credit card or anything. It's just 3 months. They're so confident that you're going to become, a fan, that you're going to want to use this more and more. They think you'll become a member. And so they're willing to give you 3 months free to try it. If you've ever used it before, you know what a great place this is. Visit e-e.com/twit to learn more. e-e.com/twit. We thank Experts Exchange so much for supporting the show. Now, I'm going to figure out how I can get out of here without screwing everything up.
Stop touching things.
And I shall give it back to you. Oh, I had one question before we go on. Mm-hmm. I have the capability of putting chat comments up in here. Now, I did that last week, and I did it with Steve Gibson, and Steve said everybody hated it, so I stopped it. But how about you guys? Do you like it or no? And the audience?
I don't have enough of an opinion yet. I'm not sure.
All right. Well,
try it.
I will.
I mean, there's no reason not to try it.
If you hate it.
If we hate it.
Say something.
Turn it off.
All right. Now, I shall magically disappear and give the floor back to Richard Campbell, runasradio.com, and Paul Thurrott, Thurrott.com. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Sorry, poor Leo. He's like, he's going to having a little
Adventures
connection
in New
meltdown today.
Studios. Yeah, it's the nature of the beast.
Yeah. So just kind of, I was going through the articles this past week, and I was like, man, there's a lot of hardware stuff, and maybe it's just the time of year. Pixel just launched, iPhone's launching soon. It's been the big summer of laptop reviews for me. Blah blah blah, whatever. So yeah. So we can rifle through some of this, but I just, like I said, I finally reviewed the fourth of the 4 Snapdragon X Elite laptops I have. This is the ThinkPad T14S. I would say
it's only a badass machine, right?
I love it.
T14
actually,
is an Intel machine.
Yeah. So the Snapdragon version's about 10 hours of battery life, as you would expect. All the efficiency, no nonsense, super reliable stuff you should expect now from this stuff. It's awesome keyboard, obviously, touch, whatever, screen's good, but there's something about ThinkPad that I just kind of love. So the only thing for me that puts the Surface laptop over the top is just the bigger screen, which you just can't get on the ThinkPad. So other than that, I mean, it's like, this is, I still think the Lenovo Yoga 7X Slim is probably a better choice for most individuals because of the crazy low cost and the upgrades and stuff. It's just nice, but yeah, this is a really good one. I have to go, like I said, I have to go to Berlin next week. I think I might just take it with me just for the 10 hours,
Nice.
like just to,
They're going to want it back at some point, right?
Yeah, I have to send it back. That's the thing. That's why I was like, but between that trip and when we go to Mexico at the end of September, I'm probably going to ship 7 or 8 laptops back. It's been like kind of a crazy summer for this stuff. So I've got like boxes piled in here. It's crazy. But anywho, that's awesome. On the other end of the spectrum, literally, is the ThinkPad X12 detachable Gen 2. So they used to have something, I think it was just called the ThinkPad tablet that came before that, but this is their Surface Pro-like tablet, right? 2-in-1. Design-wise has not changed at all since the last one, which I think is as many as 3 years old now. It's a Intel Core Ultra, which is like, and then it's like a U series. You're like, oh, so the difference between U series and H series is that the U series still has the old school Intel integrated graphics, not the newer ARC graphics. So yeah, but they're shooting for thin and light, obviously, whatever this type of form factor. I'll give it a shot, but I'll just point out, I'm not going to say what it was, but I did get a U series Meteor Lake laptop in earlier this year that was so bad I just eventually decided I'm not reviewing this thing. It was terrible. So I'm a little nervous about it.
Those are pre-production chips too, right? Like it's pretty.
Was it? I don't remember. No. I think it was. I think it was out. It was the only one I've seen. Like, I think it's notable that most laptops go with the H series. Like you would typically reserve those for more like not workstation, but more creator style or whatever.
Heavy duty workloads.
Yeah. But I think because the architecture change, it's become more mainstream. And we saw that with the previous gen when they did the P series over the what was that 12th and 13th gen. Same thing. As they change the architecture, they have to kind of almost scaffold it up a little bit. So anyway, it's a thing. I know some people are really into that kind of stuff. Whatever. Couple of Pixel things. So I got the Pixel 9 XL. I think I got it actually during the show last week, or right before the show. Switched it over, set it up. It's all great and everything. And this phone is freaking me out because it looks and feels so much like the iPhone that I have.
Right.
That things like I'll have to do like the way Apple does like 2FA is you get a code on another Apple device and have to type it in. So like I'm on Apple TV the other night renting a movie with our friends and it's like, oh, type in this code. So I picked up the phone and I'm like, where's the code?
This is
an Android
dude.
phone. Yeah, like it's not enough. Yeah, it's weird. Like it's so much like it. Like yeah, it's really strange.
Were you able to import your stuff from the iPhone to get
yeah, I think there is. I don't do that, but yeah, there is that.
It offers that, but I've never tried it. I always take it from another.
The big change they did this time was they're letting you do that after you're all set up. Like before, you had to do it during setup, and now you can actually push that off. So if you want to bring in your data and your apps and everything, you can do that later. I almost always I did do this time a clean install just because I hate myself. I don't know.
Right.
But
no touch, right?
Just I'm trying to see. Yeah, like right. What did you decide? Like, did you say no touch? Is that what you call it?
No touch. Just let it run, right?
Yeah. So the dream in any hardware deployment is no touch or light touch, right? And the way I the way I do these things is typically heavy touch. So it's the opposite.
So can you tell which is which?
Yeah.
On the one side is the Pixel 9. On the other side, you can tell when I flip it.
It's funny because I would have guessed the other way. So the only telltale sign from the front is you don't have dynamic island. You just have the single camera hole.
Right.
And then from the back, like, look, everyone watching this is like, I could recognize an iPhone Pixel camera array from a million years, but a lot of people can't. I mean, I think this would pass for an iPhone for a lot of people. Just out in the wild, like you wouldn't even notice it, I
play a little game when I'm doing out and about and doing selfies, identifying the phones from the camera that they're using. It's kind of fun.
Yep. Yeah, no, we were because it was on in a bar. There was like some kind of a tennis thing going on, and all these people are taking pictures on their phones of whatever's happening. It's like iPhone. Oh, there's the one pixel guy. That's cute. Right. iPhone. It's just all iPhone.
I like it. It's heavy. Does it feel heavy to you?
So it's as heavy as the iPhone is the way I would say it.
That's about right. Better battery life, though. I've gone 2 days now.
Yeah, but it is. It's a low bar. It's still not as good as the iPhone. At least, so I've only had a few days. But I mean, it's
give it some time. I keep forgetting to plug it in, and it's like,
that's
wow,
great.
you're at 88%. Okay.
Yeah, that's good. We did a big day out, lots of photos. I brought a charger and needed it. So, but I wasn't using it. It just was unplugged.
So, have you tried the AI features like call notes?
The AI features are hilarious. So, some of them are awesome. Like there's a feature, it's called auto frame, where you have a photo, and it's one of those things you might have seen this online, where you can take a photo and you have it extended off to the side, so you make it like wider or whatever, like it fills in the details. That's incredible. Like it's incredible. But then they also have this on-device image generation thing, which I think is called Pixel Studio, maybe, which is ludicrously bad, like really bad. And that's the experience kind of on the Copilot Plus PCs too, right? The stuff that they do really well is magic eraser type stuff.
I just did that. You saw that bar?
Yeah, like that stuff. I took a picture of a crowd of people in a square, and I was like, boop, and they all disappeared. And there's a couple things I didn't do it at the time, but you should go in and kind of clean up some details here and there. But my God, like it's kind of crazy. Like,
so I'm going to turn my kitty cat.
Yeah. So this is the reimagine feature.
Yeah. It's
a little slow. It's I mean, it's running on device supposedly, but it's make this look like it's the golden hour. Nice. Yeah.
Isn't that great?
Yeah. So I did one where I had I changed some motorcycles into like a Volkswagen Bug, that kind of thing. Looks great.
And it's pretty good. I mean, it's hard the edges are good. It's really hard to say where that was modified.
This is always, Google's been talking about computational photography. See, people forget this, but Pixel 2, that long ago, was the first one. They had custom hardware. I think it was called Pixel Visual Core, to do the basics versions of this kind of stuff. Right. It developed into something else that was more general and would do hardware accelerated AI for other things.
Yeah,
these were like proto MPUs, right? That's
basically.
They kind of started this.
Those Pixel phones shipped with those TensorFlow processors for a while.
Yeah,
and I think only Google was taking advantage of them.
Yep. So it's just really interesting, and today it's like science fiction. I mean, it's crazy. Some of the stuff is crazy.
It is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. And by the way, the thing
all this AI stuff is a feature, not the product.
Right.
The photo.
Yeah. So going back to Pixel, because I've been using the iPhone probably since, I don't know, February. You forget. Right? You forget what it's like when your phone actually prevents you from getting any kind of spam from phone calls or texts. That's wonderful. Or you forget all the million tiny features that they would have advertised or promoted as like the helpful phone, that stuff, where it's like you call and you're waiting on hold. It's like, I'll wait on hold for you. We'll let you know when you're there, or it navigates through the phone system for you, or it call screens for you, and then the scammer just doesn't bother because it can tell it's not going to get through. It has a million tiny, helpful AI things. Right? Yeah,
Have you tried the call notes yet, where it listens to the call?
No, I haven't yet. Yeah,
we should call each other. And
this will. Yeah, because this requires the other person to agree to it, obviously,
right?
And whatever. But it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think this thing is really, it looks great. we'll see. I need to use it more, but there's an astonishing. There's Apple, which is like this slow measured. We're going to get there. Don't worry. It's going to, it's not going to scare anybody. And then Google's like running around, like just doing it is the exact opposite. It's crazy.
One of these.
It's like the Wild West. Everyone gets a gun, just keep shooting randomly. We'll be fine.
Don't worry about
some of the stuff it does some of it is crazy. Like some of it is crazy. Because that image generator, you can tell it to generate anything and it will do anything offensive you can think of. Like it will pretty much do. And which is astonishing because if you go to Gemini right now and say, because I did this morning, actually, I create me a picture. It's like a factory with some people in front of it. Like, yep, we're not doing people yet. And it's like, they haven't been doing people since that thing that happened back in February. They're still not doing it. But if you go into this stupid little Pixel app, it's like, oh, you want people? Here you go.
Sure, I got people.
It's crazy. So anyway, the contrast between Apple and Google on this stuff is it's just awesome. It's hilarious. There's something for everybody in there, I guess,
Well, and it's Google. They write software. They don't necessarily build great APIs. They don't necessarily engage the community particularly well, but their engineers go to work using those processors and getting results that other phones can't do. More power to them.
Yeah. Apple has more of a, I didn't mean to say it this way. I was going to say not dictatorial, although as I fumbled over that, yes, actually dictatorial. But I mean, they have a way of dictating like what's going to happen. They'll be like, look, this year the Pro phones are going to have this feature, and nobody asked us for this, or we certainly didn't listen to you if you did, and that's what we're doing. And then next year comes around, they're like, all right, now we're going to bring it over to the iPad. We're going to bring it to the non-Pro phones, and they just kind of have their own. They do what they do, Whereas Google's like I said, like, it's just like
one of these.
It's funny. I'm surprised by how much I like it. Like and I've always liked Pixel, but I mean, it's just kind of fun. Like you could lose yourself in this stuff pretty easily.
Well, you're flying your board with your iPhone, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like the difference is interesting. Related to this, Google, rushed is the wrong term, but Google intended to ship Android 15 earlier in the year than they have with previous Android releases. They actually tried to do this last year too. They then scheduled their Pixel launch for much earlier than they usually do. So we had the first Pixel 9 series phones come out in August. They usually come out in October.
Right.
And even with the heightened schedule, we kind of figured, well, they're going to ship with 14 and then Android 15 will come out. You just get that probably in September. And I guess that was the plan, but they just delayed that until September. So in the course of 24 hours, they released an interim beta, probably the final one for Android 15. So people on Pixel 9 series phones could get into the beta. And I did that because, idiot. And then they didn't announce it, but if you are in the Android 15 beta and you unenroll and the Android 15 stable is not out, you have to go back to 14. And when you do that, you have to wipe your phone. So it's like a factory reset. And in the screen that comes up for that, it says, the alternative is don't install this and just wait until October when Android 15 ships. Like, oh, thanks for telling us. So I guess it's coming out in October, which is, at least a month later than they intended originally. So if you are on the Android 15 beta, if you have a Pixel 9 or not, it doesn't matter, any phone.
Right.
And you want to exit, what you can do is unenroll your phone now or anytime. Well, you don't want to wait too late, but do it now if you want, and just leave it alone. Don't install that update, because if you do the over-the-air update, you'll wipe the phone and go back to 14. You may want that, but I mean, if you don't want that, don't do it. And then it won't just auto-install. It's not Windows. It's not going to do it behind your back, but I figured it'd be like a couple of weeks. It's going to be a couple of months. So just sit on it, and in October, 15 will come out, and then the over-the-air will switch to that. And that one you can install, and then you'll be unstable. You'll be good to go. So
cool.
There you go. And I guess that's it.
Okay.
Yes. Let me see if I can add myself. Move myself to the middle.
Jeez, and then it's one of those tile games where it's like.
Well, normally I have professional board ops doing this, but on this show, for reasons I'm beginning to regret.
Yep.
I thought I would do it.
It seemed like such a good idea.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
It's not, you know what? It's me. And if I can just get it all down right, I will be fine.
This is the tech version of Super Dave, where you're like, I got it. I got
this.
And then
I ain't got it.
And then he slides down the wall. I missed it.
All right. We're going to have more with Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott in Macungie you're in Copenhagen, Denmark,
Yeah.
Richard Campbell.
That's right.
Have you gone out to see The Little Mermaid yet?
No. Some friends of mine went, but I was working in the conference center all day today. So
Don't worry about it.
we're in the meatpacking area, which used to be a really rough part of town. The fellow I met today, Casper, who brought me this phenomenal Danish whiskey, he was sort of looking around going, I've been down here in 10 years. This used to be a really good place to get stabbed.
No, it's really nice now.
Yeah. And a great bit of urban renewal. It's beautiful.
Yeah. I actually like it quite a bit. And if you do walk down to see, of course, she's in the harbor. You can't walk over to her. But
she's made of bronze, so she's only so easy to talk to.
Yeah. But
she's slippery if you try to jump.
And I'm walking down with Lisa, this is a few years ago, towards it. And there's a thing that you might think is The Little Mermaid on the shore there, but there is a dead giveaway. She's rather buxom.
I thought you were going to say it's a seal.
Maybe it is. Maybe I was fooled by the manatee.
Rather buxom seal.
Yeah. Anyway, I love Copenhagen.
So it's like some company just put something up to fool people?
One of the things about Europe that you notice is there's a lot of art, a lot of public art. Was it Copenhagen where there's a face floating in the river and a hand pointing? I can't remember if that was Helsinki. Anyway, just you're walking down the thing. It's like, what the hell?
The bridges on the highways of Ireland have been painted like they're with art. They're like beautiful.
Yeah, isn't that great?
We were there with my wife's parents, and we're driving. And she's like, "Why?" Her father's like, "Why are these things all? What's with all the art? Why are they like that?" It's like it's art. It's like,
it's
what does it do? What does it do?
It doesn't do nothing. It's just like Europe.
Why is it there? Just shut up and enjoy it.
Our show today brought to you. Thank you, gents. We'll be right back to the Apple section of Windows Weekly. I know you're waiting with bated breath for that. But before we do, I want to talk a little bit about our sponsor, 1Password. They've been with us for quite some time. You may say, well, no, wait a minute. No, they haven't. Yes. Well, not exactly. Collide, you remember, right? Collide, great tool that lets you enroll your users into your security team, that makes sure that everybody who's using your stuff is using secure software and hardware and all that. Well, 1Password acquired Collide. We mentioned this about 6 months ago, and now they have put together an incredible tool that everybody must have, 1Password Extended Access Management. And it solves really two problems in one. It is both authentication, that's what 1Password is so good at, user authentication, and then it's also hardware app identification without MDM. Here's the question: if you in your environment, do your end users, do they always work on company-owned devices, right? They never bring in their phones or their laptops, right? They only use IT-approved apps. They don't have Plex running in the background, right? Of course they do. So how do you keep your company's data safe when it's sitting on all those unmanaged devices running unmanaged apps? That's where 1Password is so cool. It helps you secure every sign-in for every app on every device. It solves the problems traditional IAM and MDM just can't touch. They say your company's security, I think this is a good analogy, is like the quad of a beautiful, Ivy League college campus. You've got these beautiful ivy-covered brick buildings and the brick-lined paths leading from one to another. Those are the company-owned devices, right? And the IT-approved apps and the managed employee identities. Everything's good. Everything's fine. But then there are also the paths people actually use. The shortcuts that go through the paths, the little muddy paths. They're actually the straightest line from one building to another. Those are the unmanaged devices, the shadow IT apps, the non-employee identities, the contractors and others on your network. Most security tools stick with the happy brick paths. But where do the security problems take place? A lot of times it's on the shortcuts, right? That's why you need 1Password Extended Access Management. It's the first security solution that brings all those unmanaged devices, all those apps, all those identities under your control, and it makes users happy. They love it. It ensures every user credential is strong and protected. Every device is known and healthy. Every app is visible. And instead of saying, no, don't bring your iPhone in, you're not pushing them away. You're bringing them in. And they really are part of your team. It's security for the way we work today. And here's the good news. It was originally available only to Okta. They've extended it now. It's generally in general availability for companies with Okta and Microsoft Entra. And they are currently in beta for Google Workspace customers. So if you use any of those three platforms, you've got to check it out at onepassword.com/Windows Weekly. That's the number 1, PASSWORD, onepassword.com/Windows Weekly. Extended access management is an idea whose time has come. And there's nobody better to do it than 1Password. onepassword.com/Windows Weekly. We thank them so much for their support of the show. Now, if I press this button...
Sorry.
Oh, you guys were busy doing other things, taking a drink, coughing up breakfast. Okay.
But
if I press
I think it's the first time I've seen you assemble that shot without you moving from the middle.
I know.
Yeah, pretty good.
I'm getting it's very complicated, and and I'm not so bright, but I'm getting it. And this, this platform is cool because we're using Restream, as people probably
can give it out to all the different sources.
Yeah, there are a lot of different. There's like StreamYard, there's Restream. A lot of companies doing this. They're using WebRTC for the calls, the video, and the audio, and then they're putting it all together. One of the things Restream does that we love, in fact, we use Restream for all the shows, is it puts us out on 7 different platforms. So we're on Discord for our club members, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, X.com, LinkedIn, Kick. We want to do Telegram. I think we're going to swap Kick for Telegram. So you can watch this show live every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC, by just going to one of those places like youtube.com/twit/live and watching us live. And I think that's really a cool feature of Restream. It lets us do that. And if Leo could just figure out what happens when he presses, there you go. It worked.
Pretty nice. Pretty smooth.
Everything's working.
Yep.
Back we go to the show and the long-awaited Apple segment.
Well, I spent some time on Pixel. I thought I would give the Apple guys a little bit of love while I talk about them behind their backs. So iPhone 16 leaks. Everyone knows what it is. Mark Gurman said when it was going to happen, and now we know it's happening on the 9th. So if you're looking forward to that, supposed to be some, Apple Watch, AirPods, blah, 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 whatever. Might be a iPad mini sighting. We'll see. So that's coming soon. So that's all. Just not a...
I love the mini. I mean, I know this isn't the show to mention this, but...
No, I did. If that thing was on an M chip, I would have gotten that,
Yeah, and I wonder if it will be, but it's certainly the one that's out now is superannuated. It's been out for a few years.
Yeah, so I think it's going to have to be, right?
For sure.
I think it's going to have to be.
Well, I don't remember what the old mini is, but the old mini is great. I have it by my bedside. That's what I read on. And
A14,
maybe
16, or something. It doesn't matter.
I think Apple's going all M4 for everything.
Yeah, wow, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
I
feel like the Wicked Witch of the West disappearing in a puff of smoke here.
And
your dog Toto too. Where did Leo go? Yeah, exactly. We're just the flying monkeys in this equation. So I mentioned this last week. I had seen something about Loop 2.0 happening. And now Microsoft has sort of announced it, by which I mean they tweeted about it. And but a couple of new features, but I'm not seeing any of this anywhere. I'm not seeing it on my commercial account. I'm not seeing it on my consumer account.
So I think it might be on my phone just because the phone loop has gotten really unreliable.
All right. Well, I mean, it looks nice according to the screenshot I have, not the thing I actually have on my devices, but yeah. So I don't know. Anyway,
So is this screenshot from Microsoft's announcement?
And it's not even a real screenshot. Well, maybe it is, because they do those kind of fake mock-up things. It's kind of hard to say if that's real or not. But yeah, it's roughly like that. I mean, it's the new, this is the Win UI fluent kind of style, whatever.
I like it.
It looks like a pretty notion,
Yeah. I mean, I've moved up a version on the laptop here. It's at 2024-08-21.
21. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was ago. That, and that's the day I saw the announcement, and so it must have been like a day something earlier. But I don't know. I'm surprised there hasn't been an official Microsoft 365 blog. Something. I don't know. Maybe there will be. But anyway, something to look out for, especially if you care about Loop or are using it or whatever. Maybe you'll just look out for this update. It's gonna have to happen at some point.
By the way, there we are with 242 people watching on X.com. Hello, all of yous. Hey, how you doing?
Well,
okay, sorry. I just get excited about these things.
That's okay. Always on the lookout for more conversions to Windows and ARM, and LibreOffice, which of course is the free Office productivity suite, Microsoft Office alternative that I think dates back to Star Office, back in the Sun Microsystems days. Yeah. As their new version out, and it is available in a native Windows and ARM version. So for the first time ever, that's cool.
Well, that is really interesting. Huh.
Yeah, and I don't use the full suite, but I do use the writer component, which is the the word processor. It's good. I mean, it looks old fashioned. It has that kind of old fashioned Windows or
it doesn't have a ribbon
toolbar.
No ribbon.
Yeah, there's no ribbon, but you can fine tune it down. I had kind of forgotten about this, but if you were to go back to the early 2000s, late 90s, people used to spend a lot of time customizing the toolbars in those apps, the ones they use the most. Like I would do this for Word, and then you could save the configuration and reload it on other computers. And nice. You can do that in LibreOffice if you want, and I have. Right. I mean, I'm that dumb, but you can spend your time however you want. That's one of the ways.
That's why we don't have to.
Yeah, it's my job. That's a good way to put it. This one was confusing to me, and apparently I didn't link to it correctly, or what did I do? I guess I did. Oh, there it is. Google announced that HP will be the first PC maker to bundle something called Google Essentials on new consumer and gaming PCs. It's going to come to other PC makers soon. So, okay. And if I don't remember this, but back in the day, Google had I think it was called something Essentials, that you would install and you'd get like a Google toolbar and Internet Explorer. And, they used to have kind of a downloadable thing back before they had a Chrome browser. Right. And at first I was like, oh, is this something like that? No, this is just crapware. It's
so was that, by the way. That was just a way to get on your desktop. I mean, that was silly.
Of course. Yeah. It's would you please install our virus?
Yeah.
So
there were a lot of those back in the day, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, this was, and then, it led to us just having, better browsers eventually.
Right. But what was that?
So it's nothing like that, but it's
Bonzi Buddy. Was that it?
No.
Bonsai Buddy?
No.
You don't remember Bonzi Buddy? It was a toolbar. Oh,
I think it was called like Google Internet Essentials.
That was it. Yeah.
I don't remember. I used it briefly. I mean, it was a thing. You had better search and whatever, better tracking. So this it's an app. It's bundled. You can uninstall it. Of course. I think the only local thing actually, I guess there would be two. And they probably don't install this all by default. So you probably just install it from there. But Google Play Games, which is the PC version of their Android-based Play Games, ecosystem, you can get that app, and it has its own emulator, and you can run Android games on your Windows PC that way. So that's part of it. And then Google Drive, which is another locally installable bit where you could, sync your drive and so forth. But the rest of it, Google Photos, Messages, Google Docs, Google Calendar. Those are just web apps, right? Those are, and I don't mean to say just web apps, but I mean, most people just run them in a browser and don't really, they don't really think of it as a local app.
Right.
So, this is just, they're paying HP for distribution basically. So,
don't have to convert very many to make it worthwhile.
Yeah.
I guess it depends on what they paid.
Yeah. So we'll see. So, this will be coming to Spectre, Envy, Pavilion, Omen, Victus, and HP branded computers, all of which are going away, and soon will be featured on Omnibook, which is the new consumer brand, the old consumer brand that's new again, right? And then presumably to other PC makers. So
I feel like people are just going to say this is malware or spyware.
It's just
it doesn't feel
junkware for sure.
Doesn't feel good to me, but whatever, it's fine. I mean, I I don't dislike any. I use Google Drive. I mean, I use a lot of stuff. Google Photos is great. I just, I don't think this is how people want to acquire that stuff. But
this is, of course, what Google got in trouble with
Apple, exactly, yeah.
Right? Because they were bundling all these tools into.
Well,
Android
it's like riding a bike, Leo. You play to your strengths, and
we're good at this. We know how to do it.
Well, they do so well with the EU too. They, haven't been able to break up or anything.
Worked out so well, yeah.
I'll say. Proton, which has come up again and again and again, announced a standalone version of something called Proton Drive for Business, right? So obviously the business version of Proton Drive. As part of this, they're actually upping the minimum storage. It used to be 512 gig, and now it's a terabyte, which is great. So any individual can now buy a business version of this, with 1 terabyte of storage, a year file version history, for typically $10 a month, but you can get it on sale for right now. It's like $5.99 if you pay for annual. Like that's a good deal. And I will say, for me, the sticking point on storage has always been, or the drive has always been, the storage stuff. Proton also has, a business suite and other things that are more expensive that, bundle all their other things together. Those are on sale as well for businesses, on the per user per month plans. But less well known is they actually have a Google Docs alternative that I think is just called Docs. That's part of Drive. So like Google Docs would be, I guess, part of Google Drive,
right?
With AI stuff going on. So, for all the reasons someone would want to use Proton, which is great. These guys, every week it seems like there's something new. So good. That's good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and these are completely unrelated, but Brave has had 2 updates over the past week, one on desktop, one on mobile, that are privacy related. So on iPad and iPhone, they're doing HTTPS by default, and they're saying that I think this is the first iOS web browser to do that, thanks to you. And that's fun, and so that's good. So obviously, if a site doesn't have an HTTPS version, it will pop up something and tell you can choose to go or not. And then on the desktop side, some months ago, maybe back in June or May, they announced that they were going to bring this thing to their to Brave on desktop called Bring Your Own Model, BYOM, right? So this is where they have something called Leo for AI that's built into the browser, like a lot of browser makers do. And now you can choose to use, you would install a local LLM or SLM, and then you configure it for use in Brave. And instead of hitting something in the cloud, because you can also bring your own cloud models, right? You can connect ChatGPT or whatever to it. But you could load up your PC with a bunch of models and then just configure each one for use in Brave, and then do all of your querying of the AI against those models instead of going out to the web, right? In keeping with their whole privacy and security focus. So cool. Complicated probably, but interesting.
Progress.
And speaking of Apple and those delightful guys responding to the DMA, it seems like every week we're getting new concessions from Apple finally.
So they're giving away bit by bit.
It's breathtaking to watch this happen. It's beautiful.
They're doing a browser ballot now. I hope they call Microsoft and ask for advice.
Yeah, especially for the UI, because Microsoft would be the company you'd want to call for that.
But the funny thing is, I don't think nobody's making browsers for iPhone.
Yeah,
it's too expensive. Firefox said we're not going to do that,
and that's because if this was worldwide, that might be different. Right. If you could do your own rendering engine and whatever else everywhere in the world, that might be a different story. But because they're limiting it to the EU, which, Apple, it's going to limit the appeal of this stuff. But they're allowing people on iPhones and iPads to delete more of the inbox apps, like something we see on Windows as well. Microsoft has been actually pretty transparent about that stuff. But they're also adding more like default apps, right? So I don't know what you can do exactly in iOS, but it's probably default mail. Actually, probably not. It's default browser, default search for autofill, I guess, and that might be it, maybe. But now there's going to be a lot more app choices for defaults, right? So you can do things like change your phone app, change your messaging app. If you're on Android, you're like, what are you talking about?
Like everybody does.
This sounds like so obvious, but
That's not how Apple works.
Typically doesn't do that.
Yeah,
people are freaking out about
what you want. They know the right way to do it.
Yeah, and I guess the thing one of the big problems we have, I think, in our world, I guess, not just our industry, but our whole world, is like people get upset about things that don't impact them.
Yeah.
And I don't mean like because we don't live in Europe. I mean, you may be as an Apple fan. I'm just going to use the Apple phone app.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm going to use Messages. I'm going to use the Apple app. Yeah, great. But there are people who want to use something else, right? So it doesn't hurt you if they do, right?
Like, well, and presumably there'd be a market of third-party phone apps that people could innovate in if Apple did allow it.
You're about to
so
find
now
out
they're
empirically see how many people actually.
Yeah, this is a good test. But I mean, Firefox said, look, if we had to write a separate browser just for iPhone in the EU, it would cost us too much money, so we're not.
Yeah. Well, maybe Google could pay them a little more. You know, I don't know.
I think that's also going away. That might be part of the problem.
The rest of this stuff is going to be lightning round because who cares? But Threads is emerging as a viable alternative to what used to be Twitter. One of the big things they did this year was allow website owners like myself or creators to have an API where they can do like auto posting and stuff like that. So that's huge. But they're obviously, you can see what the Threads is doing. It's like, what are other networks doing? Oh, they're doing like weird little posts that disappear over time. Let's do that thing. So they're kind of adding that stuff.
Is that better? Are you happy now? More people?
I don't understand the benefit of that, but
I don't either. I hate it, but it's weird because in Instagram, where I see it the most, a lot of my friends use it pretty extensively. And I don't create something so it disappears.
I think it's paranoia.
I don't like it. Yeah. But I guess if you're a teenager or an imbecile, I'm trying to imagine why you would want this. I don't know. Like
if you're a teenage imbecile,
if you were a farmer and I don't know. I don't understand, but people seem to like it. Or some people do. So we also heard about rumors of a paid version of Alexa. Apparently that's going to launch in October. Amazon typically has that September event, which I'll describe as a Alexa hardware event or, Amazon devices event. This might be our first peek at Panos Panay post Microsoft.
Yeah,
we're all looking forward to that.
He's going to charge you $10 so you can have a chatty Alexa.
Super pumped about paying for.
Oh boy.
I don't know.
Well, those guys need to make a viable business model out of that thing. They've been making this for a long time.
Yeah, they lose business.
Yeah.
We're supposed to sell a lot of soap, and it didn't.
But who's going to pay $10? Really?
For something and
it better be modernized. Like it better have the LLMs running now. Like we're hoping.
Well, that's the whole idea. Yeah.
I don't know.
The old apparently is going to continue, according to rumor, going to continue.
Yeah.
The new will be the AI enabled.
Yeah, and
so there'll be a free and a paid version.
So if you convert and start paying, you get a new one. And if you don't,
they're going to start doing things that will bring in the old people. They'll be like, "Oh, you want to hear the weather?" Or they're like, "You want a joke?" Nope, you're going to have to pay for that. Jokes are a paid feature.
There you go. Weather on Mars.
Oh, God, Amazon is the worst. Anyway,
that's a good answer for weather on Mars.
Panos Panay and Amazon deserve each other.
How long do you want to start a pool on how long Panos will last?
I know. I'm surprised he's lasted at all. This doesn't jive with the whole
different culture. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see. Well, you never know. And I'm not even sure why I put this in. Oh, because probably the AI thing. I think at one point I was going to have an AI section. I was like, Google Meet, which I actually use Google Meet every day. I know. There's two features, one you can have and one you can't have. The one you can have is auto pip, like picture in picture. So if you're in a Google Meet meeting, which you would typically do in a tab, and you switch away from that tab because you have to look at a presentation or an email related to the meeting, meeting disappears, but now it's going to be in a picture in picture thing, right? Okay, nice. Obvious. You could have done that before. You had to do it manually, but now it's going to be automatic. The one you have to pay for, so if you're in a paid Gemini tier of Google Workspace, you're going to get AI meeting notes, which is actually kind of awesome, right? So you have a meeting, 2 to 4, whatever number of people. The meeting organizer, when the meeting is done, Gemini will generate the meeting notes, like someone might have taken in minutes or whatever. It will store it in the organizer's drive and then put a link to it in the meeting item in Google Calendar. So everyone can click on it and go get the meeting notes. So I actually think there you go. That's helpful. Not something I would pay for, but a good feature of something I would pay for. And I do actually pay for it. I don't pay for the Gemini.
Integrated into tier. Google Office, and use it.
Oh, that's good. That's good stuff.
Yeah, it's turning into these are just features.
Yes.
There's an agent model waiting there, which is not only here's the summary of the meeting, but this is also the work items that each person took on, and then it can go back and nag for them. Do the thing that a lot of PMs spend the bulk of the time doing. You said on this date you would commit to this. Are you done by now? Where are you with this? Do you need help?
Yeah,
this is very automatable by a smart agent.
Yep. This is this notion of like usually with tiers, you're charging something for everything. But, I always think of Windows. Windows, we starting back in Windows XP, we had Home and Pro basically for individuals. And someone at Microsoft had to sit down with a list of features and say, all right, well, this is going over to Pro and this one isn't. And, that kind of thing. Yeah. And, companies that have AI in their products like Google and Microsoft are going to be making those determinations for the next, several years. Like this meeting notes thing is a fantastic idea. I mean, I would hope it comes something like it comes to just consumers who aren't paying extra for that, but at some point, but that's one of those things you have to kind of figure out, as the product designer. So we shall see.
It's just all text coming back at you.
Yeah.
Let's do some Xbox. What do you say?
Yeah. So last week was a bonanza of Xbox news. This week is not, but we do have a few things. I don't know if it was last month probably, but there was insiders were testing a bunch of updates for the Xbox dashboard. Those are now shipping out in stables, to everybody. So if you're an Xbox user, you can look for this. It's called the August update. The biggest thing there is all those Discord changes, right? And so they're making the integration of Discord and Xbox better for everybody. So, streaming, finding your friends, just communicating with your friends in the console, that kind of thing. It's almost like Discord's taking over for the social part of Xbox, he says, winking, because it does have that kind of vibe.
Last man standing.
Well, for a little while they had something called Mixer, which was just about game streaming. But Xbox today has social features. You have a friends list. You can chat. You can talk. And they're starting to do this. I'm wondering if they're not going to outsource this to
grassroots up approach to it.
Yeah, and of course, Discord has paid tiers, so some of the features require a paid Discord account as well. But that is rolling out. Microsoft has an Xbox. I guess the Xbox part of Microsoft has so far been doing a great job dealing with game studios whose employees want to unionize. Right? They've been really good about that until now. And apparently, Raven Software. Remember, these guys started. These were kind of enthusiasts in the '90s who wanted to build games first on the Doom engine and later on Quake and so forth. They made Hexen and Heretic, and things like that. They were rolled in at one point to whatever became Activision Blizzard, this conglomerate, and so they're part of that. And those guys have been trying to. Well, they did actually. I think they did unionize, but they've actually issued a formal complaint about Microsoft and its bad faith bargaining with the unionized workers who were trying to reach a collective, bargaining agreement. So my only contribution to the story was Laurent, the guy who writes the news at my site, was talking about this with me. And I said, I think what we need here is an AI generated image of a raven wearing worker clothes, standing in front of a group of striking workers at a factory. And he's like, I can't do that. And I'm like, I'm going to spend the rest of my morning making exactly that picture.
It's all about
prompt, baby. That's what I wasted all my time on. And that's how
Did you get a good one?
It's an okay one.
Hilarious.
Let me look. Wait a minute. Now we got to check it.
It's okay.
That's pretty good, Paul.
It's okay.
I like
It's okay. I tried to do this with Gemini. Gemini will not do people, like I said. So,
who did you do this with? Midjourney?
This is Microsoft. So the
Copilot. Nice.
Yeah. I will say. So I did it with Copilot, which is Designer, but then I put it into Gemini to expand it out using that autofill feature, right? Because the thing it created was square. So because I did it on the wrong version, whatever. Anyway, yeah, I'm all over AI. That's that's
Mr.
what I do.
AI, I think
I use AI for stupid.
I can't remember view aspect numbers, but I'm all over AI.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So I think last month or sometime in the past month, Microsoft and Amazon announced a partnership to bring Xbox Cloud Gaming, which is the cloud streaming service that's part of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, to I think just the two newest versions of the Fire Stick hardware, which is like a 4K Max and probably a Fire TV Stick 4K something, whatever. And now they're starting to expand it to other Fire TV devices. So the Fire TV Stick 4K Max, which is actually 3 years old, and then the third generation Fire TV Cube, which is a kind of big one that looks like a board cube, which is about a year old, I think. So, whatever. I don't know. You can connect your controller directly to the device, probably Bluetooth, I would imagine, although maybe also with a USB cable, which I would have to think is a much better connection. And then you can try game streaming. I've had such bad results with this, but depending on your connection, whatever, it might be okay.
I hope it works.
Not a big deal, but it's an option.
Okay.
And that's your Xbox segment. How very exciting. Now I'm going to push a button.
I can't wait to see what happens. I have no idea
what will happen.
He's going to be upside down on the left.
It worked. I'm here. Hello, everybody. Our show today brought to you by one last ad, and then it's the back of the book, and we are promised with some Danish whiskey. So that should be good.
Now some Danishes?
Hell, does Danish whiskey go with Danishes?
No.
Do they even have Danishes in Denmark?
No, they don't. They're Viennese. They don't. They wouldn't call them Danish any more than the French call pommes frites French fries. So
they think that's crazy talk.
Do you think that's like the Simpsons jokes?
What
you must
do they
try
have? They have
our
a lot of
Brazilian nuts.
fish.
Of course, here we just call them nuts.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Our show today brought to you by Melissa. It's Melissa, the data quality expert since 1985. Whether you need the full white glove service or just the nuts and bolts, Melissa, not the Brazil nuts, but the regular nuts, Melissa is the best for your enterprise. Melissa's helped over 10,000 businesses worldwide harness accurate data with their industry-leading solutions, processing, get this number, over 1 trillion addresses, emails, names, and phone records. 1 trillion with a T. Melissa offers integrations and apps and platforms and spreadsheet editors. Microsoft 365, Google Sheets, Dynamics 365, Esri, Stripe, Shopify. Everywhere you work, Melissa can be. And that's great because, frankly, the first place where you want to make sure you got the right data is at the entry point, right? Whether it's your customer service reps, your customers, or you, when you're entering numbers, it's easy to make a mistake. Melissa makes it easy for you to fix it, to clean and standardize your data within popular platforms you're already using, to help improve ROI, to optimize business efficiency, to elevate the customer experience. Be sure to check out Melissa's Marketplace. There you'll see the entire range on-demand access to premium third-party data to improve campaign performance, enhance data visualization, to drive better business decisions. Some of the resources you could choose from include consumer, property owner, and business contact data by industry, location, job title, 400 other attributes. They've got a global address database, a master list of 200 plus million verified USPS addresses, coverage for 40 plus countries, USPS carrier route and boundaries, zip code data, parcel boundaries, plus other location data for US, Canada, and the world. Melissa now offers transparent pricing for all its services, so you can eliminate the guesswork when estimating your business budget. And Melissa's services use secure encryption. This is important for all file transfers and an information security ecosystem built on the ISO 27001 framework. You know you want this. They also adhere to GDPR policies, which you may have to do, right? And maintain SOC 2 compliance, which you may have to do. Melissa's the right choice for almost every business. Get started today with 1,000 records cleaned free. Just go to melissa.com/twit, MELISSA, melissa.com/twit. We thank Melissa so much for supporting Windows Weekly, the fine work that Paul and Richard do. melissa.com/twit. There's another way you support Windows Weekly, of course, by joining the club. We invite you, this is a quick, brief mention, to join Club Twit. $7 a month. We like to keep the price low so everybody could afford it. You get ad-free versions of this show and all the other shows. You get video in Paul's Hands-on Windows show. We only put out the audio in public. Same with Hands-on Macintosh, the Untitled Linux show. Scott Wilkinson's Home Theater Geeks. There's lots of content. Special events. Stacy's Book Club is coming up. So is our photo walk in New York City. It'll be September 7th. Hope you'll join me at 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. in Bryant Park. Then Joe in our club is going to take us out, take photos of Grand Central Station, the Oculus, and everything in between. It's going to be really amazing. So all of that supported by a great group of people. You get access to the Discord where you can hang out with them. And it's $7 a month. You can pay more if you want. And if you can afford it, I would love it if you did. But it starts at $7 a month. Just go to twit.tv/clubtwit. Or, if you will, scan the QR code in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. twit.tv/clubtwit. All right, back we go to the show. We're going to kick things off with Paul Thurrott. And in the back of the book, his looks like a tip of the week. Paul?
Yeah, so back in May, I published a tip about how you could download the release preview ISO of Windows 11 24H2, just double click it, mount it in the file system, run setup, and upgrade to 24H2. And if you did that, you've been getting all the stable updates ever since you're not in the Insider program, et cetera, et cetera. And as Chevy Chase taught us on SNL, Henry Smo, Francisco Franco is still dead, and this tip still works. So what's happened in the 3-ish months since then is that build that was new at the time is no longer available. But if you go to the Windows Insider ISO, in fact, I just loaded it up. Where is it? Download page. The latest release preview channel build is 26100, which is 24H2.1150. No one should remember this stuff, but this was the build that came into stable in July as part of Patch Tuesday. So it was in the release preview, 2 weeks earlier, probably very end of June. So that's how old that build is. But if you download that ISO today, do what I described, mount it, run setup, let it do its thing. Reboot, you come back, you're in state. You'll have to, install the latest monthly cumulative update and optionally the preview update, but you're in stable, right? So you can still do that today. If you didn't do it and you thought you missed the window, whatever you didn't, you can still go. So fully supported, everything's fine. I mean, it's Windows, so it has whatever problems Windows might have, but that tip still works. So if you were wondering about that, awesome. Wonder no more. And then I think I mentioned
you're really going to get any new features if you do it. Thank you, because it pretty much
you do. Compared to 23H2. Oh, I see what you're saying. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, you don't. Well, you do. Okay. Here's one reason to do it. And actually, this is the reason I just did it. So I casually threw this out earlier and didn't really explain it. AMD released their the new Ryzen processors. Is it Ryzen 5? Getting that right? Whatever the gen name is. If you're not running 24H2, which most people aren't, especially if you buy it with a new computer, the performance out of these chips is not as good as it was supposed to be. The work to enable that is apparently in 24H2. And so I have that little laptop we were talking about, 3 weeks ago-ish, that's based on AMD Ryzen chipset. And supposedly this gives, it's better on the new chips, but it also gives a performance boost to older gen AMD Ryzen chips. So I installed it on that system this morning just to, see what it did.
Awesome.
So I don't have anything to report there yet. I just installed it, but Zen 5. Sorry. Thank you.
And this machine is 23H2, so I could probably go for it.
Yeah. I would, that's a tough thing to say. Is there a reason not to do this? I mean, no, I've done it on lots of computers. So, and of course I'm running,
it's gone through so many iterations at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like the other supported releases. It's updated every month. It's, there's new features. As we were, Leo was doing one of the ads, and I have this system I'm actually bringing up with my WinGet script. And before that, I had updated the apps that are in box through the store. And this is the first time I've seen that store update we talked about, again, a week, 2 ago, whatever it was, where it's hard to know when and where things happen. But there's a new version of the store app where downloads are separated from library. Right. And so I actually just saw that for the first time, and that's a 23H2 box, not a 24H2 box. So you never, it's spin the wheel and see what's coming up. Nobody knows.
Oh,
okay.
Well, somebody knows.
I don't know. All I can do is tell you what I see.
Yeah,
and it's always something different. So app pick of the week, a couple things here. I mentioned this, I think, last week of Win11Debloat, which is a PowerShell script you can grab from GitHub. I just recorded an episode of Hands on Windows, so you can, there'll be a video about this. And then since then, I just wrote up a tip about using it. So this is arguably one of the best cleanup, debloat, whatever you want to call it, deinsurtify Windows 11 utilities I've seen so far. It's a little daunting because it is a PowerShell script, it's a command line thing, but it's pretty straightforward. And the thing that puts this over the top, even for people who might be afraid of this kind of thing, is the author includes standalone reg files for a lot of the changes that he makes to the system through the script, meaning you can go and see what those reg files do. And then you could just run those individually, right? If you don't want to make a 12 or 15 different changes, you only have one or two, you can just run the individual script, the individual reg files. That gave me an idea. I was, it wasn't that day. It was like the next day I was heading to bed and I was thinking about this for whatever reason, because I'm mental. And I have been working a lot on that WPF, modernizing my app thing. And I thought to myself, wait a minute. PowerShell's .NET, WPF is .NET.
Yep.
The code in this script, which is freely available and readily readable, is going to be readable to me because I understand this kind of .NET API stuff. And I was like, what if?
You're going to put a GUI on it?
Well, I'm not going to put a GUI on this, but the problem is there's a lot of these apps and none of them are exactly what I want. And I'm like, maybe instead of just, complaining about Windows 11, maybe I could write an app that fixes Windows 11.
No, you're crazy.
Yeah, this is nuts. But I started writing it, and
how's it going?
Yeah, it's going good. And so the first thing I did was some of the simple stuff. So I wrote a really short article about this to kind of gauge reaction, but I just did a couple of the simplest things. And so the app, I can click a button in my app, and it will toggle through the different search buttons you can have in the taskbar in real time. So icon with label, bar, or hidden, right? Yep. And that worked. Okay, nice. I did task view. And then since I wrote this article, I've done some of the more, I'm going to call them complex things. So for example, one of the things that I like to do is when you plug in a USB drive, it shows the drives or the partitions in the main view of File Explorer over in the navigation pane, but also in the This PC view, right? I don't actually want them over there on the side. If I need them, I'll just go into This PC because they take up some space. So this one, for this to work, you have to reboot or restart Explorer. And I was like, I'm gonna hammer away on this one. And you have to create and delete registry keys. Super dangerous, right?
Yep.
And I got that working too. And I'm like, you know what? I can do this. So I'm going to do something. And the thing I want to do, one of the tricks with this kind of thing, and the real reason I'm doing this, other than just intellectual stupidity, is you'll install a feature update or maybe even a monthly update, and it will make changes to the system and not say anything to you. So you might have run this utility at some point, or any utility. You made some changes, and then, who knows? These things are all buried in little things in settings somewhere, right? So I'm going to write this in a way that it will come up. It will save your settings, obviously. You can export them and do all that stuff, and then it will compare your desired configuration with what's actually happening in the system. So after you install a cumulative update, you'll be able to compare and see what did it screw with. And that's the thing to me that's missing, right, in these utilities. So I'm going to kind of create the version like I want, and then I'll get feedback from people, and
see what happens.
Yeah, why not?
It's fun.
I have a lot of free time. I'm not busy.
Yeah.
I don't have a business to run or anything. It's good. So I don't know.
My overhead light has packed it in for the day, so it's good. We're almost done.
I was hoping you saw a ghost in the corner. You had one of those YouTube video, kid gets scared by ghost looks. You're staring up at the corner.
What's that light? So things have changed.
Yep.
Well, I guess that makes it my turn.
Yeah.
For a little Run As Radio. This week's show, end of the month here, one I actually recorded in person back at KCDC in June with Steve Poole, talking more of the security side of some of these artificial intelligence technologies. So the angle we came at this was really that often we are as sysadmins in a situation where leadership has read something in CIO magazine or Forbes and are like, okay, we need this. And saying no is not wise, but you do have to present the risks related to it, like all of the things that need to happen to be successful. And so we started trying to just kind of enumerate a few of those risks and helping people with language to approach this the right way. And part of this is if they're going to start really, we weren't just talking about the Microsoft related stuff. And, I want to light up M365 Copilot. It's like, no, I want to do some work in Python, just stack you've never had before. Or I want to start using the Hugging Face APIs. And that brings in a lot of software that you may only be marginally familiar with. Also, you're dealing with a bunch of open source stuff, which now you might have some supply chain issues. Like, it's a bunch of work. It takes time. You're never saying no, but you're also doing the right thing. So you do have to work your way through it and have some confidence before you can let it out in the wild and let the devs go at it. So it was a great conversation and just things to think about to actually get to yes and to give some confidence that you're not going to harm your business with this new technology.
I mean, you are probably, but
it's always
but good luck.
Well, and then that brings us, really to the back of the book. It's something I've been waiting for quite some time. So, fellow Microsoft MVP and a Club Twit member, Casper Larson, I had lunch today, and he dropped this off with me. And this is the Mossgard Whiskey Muscatel Single Malt. So one of 440 bottles. This is actually bottle 431. It was bottled back in March of 24. We've talked about Danish whiskey before. I talked about the Stauning back in episode 874, so about 20 episodes ago. Really Denmark didn't get into whiskey until getting into the EEC. A lot of rules changes in 2005 that made it easier for small manufacturers to happen. Stauning was arguably one of the first of the contemporary whiskey makers in Denmark. Mossgard was started in 2015, so somewhat later than that, by Jessin Gitte Mossgard. Jez Mossgard was the CTO of a company called Libertone, which still exists today. They make high-end audio equipment using Wi-Fi. So think of a sort of Scandinavian-style Sonos type technology. Although curiously, they had it was a startup company and was funded. They had a major acquisition event in 2014 by a Hong Kong consortium, and just left in 2015 to start Mossgard. So, maybe he made some money. I hope he did, because he turned it into whiskey, and that's not a bad thing. The distillery itself is in southern Fyn, which is down in the South Funen archipelago. This is west of Copenhagen and close to the border with Germany there, although it's in on the waterway, so it's a fair bit off. It's an old farm. They have apple trees and things like that. They are buying local organic barley. It's a great growing region for barley, so there's tons of it. Their water is heavily calcified, so lime water, the same sort of stuff the Americans use for bourbon because it tastes good. And they have handmade stills from Portugal. In fact, they do a lot of Portuguese-related things, which I found interesting, including a ton of different kinds of barrels from Portugal for sherry and for Spanish and port as well. Like most micro distilleries, they make a gin because you can get that out on year one, where whiskey takes somewhat longer. They started in 2015. Their first bottlings of whiskey don't come till 2019. This particular edition, again, only in 2024. This is a cask strength single malt. And they, again, only made 440 bottles of it. It sells for about 1,000 Danish kroner. It was only available in Denmark. I got bottle 431. And so roughly about $150. So I hate to show you guys a whiskey that you can't buy, but you probably can't buy it. And the other reason is not only was it a tiny small batch that was only run once, but this run won the 2024 World Whiskey Award for Best Single Malt from a small batch company. So yeah, stunning, unbelievable that they pulled this off. So organic barley from Denmark. They then put it into Jim Beam casks for 3.5 years. So American bourbon, classic thing to do on the initial round. And then did 1.5 years in Muscatel sherry. Moscatel is a different sherry than most. The vast majority of sherries are actually made with the Palomino grape. There's 3 different green grapes that they use in eras to make sherry, and Palomino makes the 90% of it. That's what makes the very dry sherries that most people are familiar with. The other 2 are Pedro Jimenez, or they're called PX, and Moscatel. Their grapes are raisined, so after they're picked, they're laid out on a sheet and they're dried in the sun. This is similar to the Amarone process out of Piedmont for Italian wine, and they make a much sweeter sherry. They typically, when sherry is made, it's fortified with grape spirit, and they'll often only do it to 15% to allow a certain amount of yeast action to continue and reduce the sweetness by consuming all the sugars. But when you're doing Moscatel, you raise it up to 18%, which wipes out the yeast, and so the sugars are gone. They stay in place. It's then aged in Spanish oak, and one of the most I may end up having to do a whole bit just on sherry alone, because what's the weird thing about sherry? It's their barreling techniques. So they blend their barrels together, but do it in a particular way. Their oldest barrels are on the bottom stack, and then there's a second stack and a third stack. And by law, they're only allowed to take a 30% out of the bottom tier barrel out to actually make a bottling. Mm-hmm. Then they refill that bottle with the stack above it, and then refill that barrel from the stack above that, and then put new make in the top stack. And which is why you always get a minimum of 3 years of aging for any Moscatels. So that's the sort of flavor that they've used here, is this rather sweet sherry barrel. And also, 1.5 years is really quite a long time. Most of the time when I see whiskeys that have done a finishing in a sherry, it's under 1 year. 6 months, 9 months, and that's about it. But this, went 18. So right off the bat, 57% alcohol. So there went your nose hairs, right? You took a big snort of that, and it just say goodbye. And then, but fruity, got a little sweetness to it. Big sip. Right off the front, it's not a lot of front, but a whole lot of back. So it goes burning on down, and it's got.
Is that a good thing or no?
Yeah. I'm curious.
It's a hit because it's a relatively young whiskey. So,
yeah.
Wow.
I buy whiskey. I want it to go burning on down.
Yeah, my instinct on this would be to immediately add a little bit of water to it. 57% is a lot. So I've just put a little drip of water into this, give it a bit of a swirl. And I can see
the cask
threading.
Strength. I mean,
it's 57%. So I can see threading. I can see that there's congeners breaking down there. So this is going to change this whiskey. Nose is the same, but I didn't get the burn. So definitely we broke in the 57.
Why does a little bit of water break that?
Well, you're only trying to you're not trying to get it to 20%, right?
Right.
So you figure this.
So
was
you're just reducing the proof. Okay.
I reduced the proof. So I probably put it down to about 45. Okay. Where you'd probably want it. So yeah, the heat's gone. It's still warming. The real question is, did you lose some of those cooler flavors, right? That citrus note and so forth. Some of the vanillins, because sometimes those break as well. But I don't think so. I think this became a lot nicer with a splash of water.
Look at that.
Mm-hmm.
In the words of Kenny Loggins.
Yeah. So very good. Going into 57%, there was only ever 440 bottles in the first place. I have one of them, and it's going to be empty within the next 2 days because I'm not taking it home. But there is a whole bunch of other whiskey made by Muscard, and you should try some if you can find it. These are not widely exported. This is another one of those 21st century small production companies that seems to want to stay that way. They're doing a lot of custom barrelings for whiskey clubs, that sort of thing, because they can afford to. In fact, I've got a couple of other whiskey distillers I've been looking at lately that do a lot of custom barrelings for clubs and things. So there might be a way to find it, to get involved with a club that has a relationship with them that does an edition where they may only make 40 or 50 bottles, and one of them will be yours. But if you're in Denmark, especially in Copenhagen, where there's some very nice whiskey stores, you can find Muscard on the shelf there. But you'll find one of the other editions often finished in sherry and port casks.
Nice.
That's what I got. So I'm very happy to find this. It's one of those rare unicorn type whiskeys and once again, and so I'm happy to share it with you guys, and we'll get back to something more findable. Although I spent a couple of days in the Netherlands and fell in with an even weirder rare whiskey. We'll get to that.
That's awesome.
Well, Richard, I think you're going to be going to bed a little early tonight. Actually, it's not
that
early, is it?
man. It's past 10 o'clock here.
All right. Take that bottle.
It's been a
with
long
you.
day, right? I gotta break out of this hotel room that I got the space for and pack everything up, get it back to the house, back to the hotel. So.
Oh, you're at a different room.
Yeah, I'm in a different. The conference provided me with a room to do.
Oh, thank you. Well, I appreciate the extra effort. You know what? Your bandwidth is better than mine, so.
You seem to be fixed up now, dude. You're stable.
Yeah.
You look stable and not framing anymore.
I'm on Starlink because Comcast just failed over. Starlink's been pretty good.
We got a good satellite right now. That's what it is.
Yeah, we installed Starlink 2 days ago, and we had to use it almost immediately because Comcast. There was a hot day yesterday, and Comcast decided it didn't want to work.
Good timing.
Yeah, so we're still on Starlink.
About Starlink, I got my concerns about Elon, but the product's pretty great.
I completely agree with you. I feel guilty using it, but I love it. We also are having internal networking issues, and I think that's due to Sonos. But Russell's really good with this stuff. He's working on it. And then there's the user error. That's all my fault. And I'm still. I thought I understood it.
I don't know if it's bothering people in the Discord about the sliding around, but it makes me grin every time you do it.
It bothers me. I don't want to do it, but until I get it down, I have to. I'm trying different things, and I apologize for
and your
it.
frames just dropped off again, so there you go.
Yeah, I don't know if I like I kind of prefer this. I don't know if I like the slots like this or this. I kind of like this.
That's got style to it, yeah. And then it gets rid of the head alignment thing.
Yes. Because otherwise, it's like a calliope, and I'm the pipe that's not working.
I got it.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you've been watching an experimental edition of Windows Weekly as we are moving to the new studio. The studio's great. It's working well. There's some noise issue. There's some heat issues, but there's some internet issues, and then there's some Leo issues. We're going to work on those one by one, and we.
And
you know
not
what? There's
in that
never,
order.
but there's never an issue with these two guys. These two cats right here, Paul Thurrott, Richard Campbell. We appreciate everything you guys do. Richard's at runasradio.com. That's where his podcasts live, Run His Radio and .net Rocks. He also is a world speaker. Who's your speaker bureau? We never plug your speaker bureau. Do you want to do
I
that?
don't work for it. I just work through myself. So
you don't have somebody booking you? You just do it your own?
I get a lot of. I just say no a lot. I get lots of calls.
You obviously are in high demand. He's the kind of the Richard Hart. Not Richard Hart.
You're the
Kevin
Richard
Hart
Campbell of podcasting is what you are, sir.
He's the Kevin Hart of tech speakers or something. Anyway, great to have you, Richard. Paul Thurrott, of course, at thurrott.com, THURROTT. That's where his blog is. And, if you are a serious fan, you're going to subscribe to the premium version because you get all sorts of additional content. Thurrott.com. His books are at leanpub.com. Windows Everywhere, which is a history of Windows through the ages, and more importantly, through its development platforms. And of course, the Field Guide to Windows 11, which is a must-have. And Windows 10 is built into there. So all of that is available at leanpub.com. You set your own price there, which is pretty cool. And you get automatic updates, things like that. We do Windows Weekly, as I mentioned, every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1800 UTC. The live streams, count them, 7 of them. You can find a live stream on almost any live streaming platform and watch. Chat along with us. If the platform supports chat, I see all the chats. I see Atle Stein Davidson in the YouTube. I see Chocolate Milk Mini Sip in our Discord. Jim Simons in YouTube. I've seen people in X and Twitter, or not Twitter, Twitch. It's great to have you all. Thank you for watching. After the fact, you can get your show at twit.tv/WW. We put an audio version and a video version up there, so you could choose from that. There's also a video version at YouTube, youtube.com/Windows Weekly Show. There's also, and this is probably the best way to get it, a podcast. You can subscribe and get it automatically every single week, so you can listen at your leisure. I hope you'll do one of those. I also hope you'll subscribe to the club so that we can count you as one of our Club Twit members. Only $7 a month. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Richard. Appreciate it. Thanks to all of you for watching. We'll see you next week on Windows Weekly.